Okay, so the regular SY underscore Oracle home pretty much looks the same way as WL home. If we go in there, let's say we jump into our cloud server. So we have created it under students online SY under Oracle middleware. This is our MW underscore home. Under this MW underscore home, we have three different homes again. This is WL home, which is WebLogic. This is SO home. This is Coherence, and this Oracle underscore common, which was created after the installation of SO. Now if you go inside this directory, it looks pretty much like your WL home. So here there are two directories, common, and you got a couple of other directories. We will go and use some of those directories, especially we'll be using BAM later. When we talk about BAM, we'll be using SOA. Alright. Other than that, we won't be using any of the other directories as such here. So as we when we actually get to those topics, we will actually know how we're going to use the directories inside them. Apart from that, the coherence is something we will use during cluster creation. For now, we are at the third stage, or probably the final stage of our setup creation. So if you look at our setup diagram that we're going to use, okay, this is what we've been trying to create, and the final step, the domain creation, is pending. If you look at this diagram, yeah, we're done with MDS, we're done with JDK, we're done with WebLogic installation, we're done with SOA domain installation, SOA suite installation, and the final stage is where we are, the domain creation. Now for the SOA domain creation, I'm going to use this document. This is the document we're going to follow. The SOA domain creation, unlike all the three or four previous things that we have done, it cannot be done using a command line mode. Means it gets a little tricky. It's much easier if you do it on a GUI mode, because there are a lot of data sources that are already available in SOA suite that get created. So when you are creating data source in console mode, it gets a little tricky. So our domain creation means the final step we are doing in GUI mode. Now to do it in GUI, because we are connecting through a PuTTY, we have slight problem. Like other WebLogic domain, we have three modes for SOA domain. Yeah, SOA domain is nothing different. SOA domain is basically, SOA is just a group of applications that get deployed, as we always say. So we are basically creating a WebLogic domain, and a SOA application get deployed to it automatically. So SOA domain creation, still you have the three modes. You have the GUI mode and console mode and template mode also. Normally, if you do a regular WebLogic domain, you can do it in console. But here, the moment you have SOA domain creation, there are a lot of data sources. That data source creation, for you to remember the names of the data sources and all that stuff, that's why it makes it difficult. A much easier way is to do it in a GUI, but the problem is, if you are trying to do it in GUI, we have here a putty. So a putty cannot actually uh, is not so we're going to use Xming system here, unless you have another part of GUI. Means if you have a Solaris system with there is a SDK kind of thing, a genome kind of, I mean some kind of GUI you need. If let's say you are using a Windows system and a regular setup which we normally have, so what I've done is, this is our Unix systems, our uh, cloud server, and on my desktop I have installed the Xming Windows, this thing, X Windows system. So Xming is a X Windows system that will help us export the GUI of our cloud server to our desktop you are looking at. You see, you understood what we are trying to do. We are exporting the display of my cloud server to the desktop where we are working. To do that, I have started a Xming server. Xming is a GUI that gives the display of the cloud server on the screen that we are looking at, or on the desktop that I'm using. I'm working on a laptop here, and that's what is shared to you guys. So to this laptop, I'm bringing the display of the cloud server. Normally we are connecting to the cloud server through this putty. So now what I'm showing you is how to export the display of this cloud server to this, the desk, to the laptop we are seeing. Now for that one, first thing I'm doing is I have started Xming server. Xming is a software, Windows based software. It's an open source software. You just you can go to Google and download Xming server. That will pretty much give you the go ahead with a regular installation stuff. Double click and go ahead with the installation. You see X server. So this X server will allow us to export the display of the cloud server onto the laptop we are working on. So I have started the Xming server. This is running here, if you see. Alright, Xming server :0.0. That's what it says. Now when I'm talking, always try to follow the cursor on the screen. Alright, usually I'll be talking about the place where the cursor is available. So here, if you see on that quick menu, so you have Xming server running. Now once the Xming server is ready, the easiest way to get the GUI of the cloud server is by opening a session and forwarding X11. X11 is a protocol that can forward the GUI of a connected system to the local system. So I have this putty open on my laptop. To the putty I'm saying go into X11, enable X11 forwarding. Alright, then connect to the system I want. So I'm connecting to a cloud server 6.49.233, or you can actually connect to that a cloud server IP 49.204.89.88. This is 59.233. Now open it. So I have opened a putty session with X11 protocol forwarded. And now that my Xming is already running here, I'm just doing a check if the GUI export is working or not. I do a check using xclock. Okay, xclock is not available. Okay, let's directly hit that config.sh in that case. Okay, so we assume that the display is working. If the display is not working, we'll have a problem and the domain creation is going to happen. Let me get back to that domain creation. What we're going to do, we're going to use the regular domain creation tool, just like WebLogic, nothing different. All right, but this time the config.sh, the domain creation wizard, we are not going to use it from WebLogic home. Instead, we will use it from the SO home, which is under this middleware home Oracle SOA common bin directory. Earlier, if you have to create a regular WebLogic, we used to use WL underscore WL server here. Under this directory, we have a common bin, there a config.sh. We all know the regular WebLogic domain creation. Now for SOA domain creation, we are going to use the config.sh under this directory. So if you go into that directory, you have common, alright, under bin, just like WebLogic, the config.sh. This is the command you're going to use. And because we are, you can give hyphen mod equal to console, hyphen mod equal to GUI. Those three things are still available. So a template we don't have here yet, so we're going to use the regular GUI mode just by executing config.sh. But if you execute it here, it will throw out an error, because on this screen, the white background screen, we did not export the X11. We did it here. All right. So if you see, just to show you that it will fail to console mode, the regular mode. See this one? It says unable to instantiate the GUI. It defaults to console. You can proceed with these steps, but as we move forward during the creation of JDBC, all that stuff, it gets a little complicated. So we're not going to use the console mode. Instead, we will try to use the GUI mode of WebLogic domain creation, and we're going to use it using X11 forwarding. So let's go to the location where we have our config.sh again. So let's go to students, OLS4, Oracle, middleware, Oracle underscore SOA. You're not able to see the putty session. What is it happening? Not able to see the putty session. I didn't see any such errors on us. You're not able to see the putty session. Really? Is it color? Let me see. Are you able to see it now? Can you see this? No. Okay, Raghav, you can see. Okay, some of you can see, others cannot. It stopped refreshing at config.sh prompt. Okay, let's see what the problem is. Can you guys disconnect and quickly connect again? Because some of you guys can see it, others cannot. Just quickly disconnect and connect. A lot of people have this problem. You can also see till config. Can you disconnect and connect again, Raghav? Can you guys put yourself on mute, please? There's some background noise. I think some of you have to put yourself on mute. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we are at RSOA Oracle middleware. Here we are. So Oracle underscore SOA common alright, and then bin. Our regular WebLogic creation, domain creation script, but only difference is we're not using it from WL home, but we are using it from SOA home. So under SOA home common bin, I'm going to use the config.sh. This is expected to launch a GUI, yeah, because of the Xming. So we are using putty forwarding with Xming. Now I have posted an article about this thing on our encode IT power blending search. The articles clearly show steps, how to get the export onto your local laptop. I'll just show you that article, then you can use it when you're practicing. And we are actually on the GUI of the cloud server. Let's go to our website. On the top right corner, just do a search. Yeah, here we go. Exporting the GUI from your search. So click on it. These are the steps. So you just have to follow these steps. Then install Xming, start your putty session, and these are the property settings that we have just now did. Alright, and connect to the session wherever you are working. Alright, use those settings. Now here, now we are trying to create a domain. Now the difference between the regular WebLogic domain creation, SOA domain creation is a SOA domain comes with a just like WLS.jar file that is used in WebLogic standard template. SOA has standard template which has certain data sources which are already there. There are certain GMS modules, GMS servers. All those things will be created one after the other when we go through these screens. Now when I'm going into these screens, so just make sure you have that document open that you have downloaded just now from our download location. Alright, these are the screens that we'll be going through. Where is the template? It's on the same location under domains template location somewhere. I think it's under OLSOA Oracle middleware. It goes to Oracle underscore common as far as I know. So here we go. Applications, I think. These are the templates. These are some of the templates it uses. It uses multiple templates. You see here the SOA common adapters, SOA rules, SOA templates. These are some of the templates it uses, not a single one. And then it will also be using a BAM template when we and I'll create a BAM part, a UMS for UMS template. So these are the various templates it's going to use. All of them are under common templates, the same location that we have under WL Home. Alright, so let's get on here. So create a new domain. This is going to be quick little. Okay, here you're going to select Oracle Source Suite here. Now there is a slight difference between Source Suite for developers, Source Suite. You're able to see this screen, right? Select domain source. That's what we're doing. So if you cannot, just let me know. So we are seeing select domain source at the cursor. So the domain source, it basically, depending on what we select here, the corresponding templates will be used from the directory just now we've seen, templates directory. We will be installing Oracle SOS Suite. The difference between Oracle SOS Suite and Oracle SOS Suite for developers, the one above it, is if you select the developers thing, only one JVM gets created. Means it's more for developer. Admin server only gets created. Onto the admin server, all your SOAR related applications also will get deployed. In most of the cases where we are working as administrators, alright, we won't be selecting developers because we will require separate admin server and separate SOAR server for deploying SOAR related applications. So this is what we're going to select. The moment you select Oracle Source Suite, it requires a Web Services Manager, Policy Manager. This is for security purposes, and then Oracle JRF, Java required files. These are the mandatory files that are required for any of the Fusion middleware components. So the moment you select Source Suite, let's say I'm unselecting everything. The moment you select Source Suite, the other also automatically gets selected. Apart from these three, you will be requiring the Enterprise Manager, OEM. That's also you have to select, and then BAM, Oracle Business Activity Monitoring, BAM thing. So these are the 5 selections you're going to do. The rest of the things we're not going to use, so you don't have to select. So Oracle Source Suite and the required 2, and the additional 2 things you're selecting is the Enterprise Manager and Business Activity Monitoring part. Once your selection is done, move on to next. We will understand about all these screens when we start working on it, instead of trying to discuss too much about here. It's more like talking in the air. As we proceed further, you will understand much more in detail about the installation. So click on next. Then here specify the domain name and the location. You call your domain name anything you want. Let's say we call it encode SOA domain. Alright. I'm going to keep these locations same under user projects domains of our Oracle middleware. Under this directory, one that's selected, alright, user projects and domains. I'm not creating a directory outside this. I'm going to use the default one. A reason why I'm going to use the default one is most of the current setups that I have seen, they tend to use the default location only. So because SOA is still new, so you don't want to customize too much. But if you want, just like our WebLogic, if you wanted the domains to be at a separate location, you can have it. I'm going to keep it under the same location. And the application location is where the Enterprise Manager related application or any other applications will go. So here for the Enterprise Manager, we have a file, em.er file. The em.er file actually goes to this location. So we'll be able to see that one once the domain is created. Alright, so this is the name of the domain. This is the domain home. So once you're selected, move on to next. Configure the administrator username and password. So I'm going to set up some SOA admin password, SOA admin 123, SOA admin 123. You can set up any password you want. Now it has to be 8 characters in 11G. There is a restriction. Up to 10G there are no such restrictions. In from 11G onwards it has to be at least 8 characters. So if you don't give 8 characters, it's going to throw out an error. So make sure you give something with 8 characters. So I set up SOA admin 123, SOA admin 123, the password. Username is SOA admin. Move on to next. Now your startup mode and JDK, I'm going to select the production mode. I'm sure you know the difference between production and development. Development mode you have auto deployment, production mode you don't have auto deployment. Alright, then going ahead with the JDK, the popular JDK, Sun JDK. Then move on to next. This is a new screen. Now here we are trying to connect to the MDS that we have created. So in the first step here we have created MDS. MDS we have created 4 schemas. So if you remember, and by the way we don't have our database up yet, which means for this screen to work your database should be up. What basically we do here is we will tell about each of the schemas that are here. MDS dev_MDS, or we have created encode 33. I think that's a prefix we have given. So we have to give all those details here. What are the prefixes? Where is the database running here? The host name. What's the port number at which it's running? And now what's the service name? And what's the password for that schema? So we're going to use the schema details that we have. Let's first bring up the database. So I'm going to use Oracle. The database bring up steps are already with you, in a separate document, how to set up the database. So I'm starting the database now. Alright, database is up. Now start the listener. Alright, so our listener is also up. So this is the name of the database we're going to use, encode IT. Now once the database is up, if you remember the schemas that were created, this one, select username from DBA_users. These were the schemas that were created last time. Is it? Somebody has created one also. I think one of you. So select username, created date if you see, from DBA_users. Yeah, on the same day somebody else has worked on it. So we have created 33. These are the 4 schemas. So we'll be giving those details in our domain creation here. So let's go ahead and give those details. So here go with the BAM. This is the database name. We're going to use Oracle driver for either you can give a service here or you can give instance name encode IT. Because we are giving an instance name here, I will select Oracle thin driver for instance. Then the schema owner, our prefix is encode 33, so we're going to use that one. All our schemas have the password encode IT. So that's the password I've given. Then the host name, port number where our database is running. So when you're working on the cloud server, you're still going to give the 192.168.128.6 only. So you're not going to give 49 here. Remember that 49.204 that you are giving is actually not the IP of a box. It's a box. It's the IP of a router. The router actually forwards it to the backend server. So inside your, once you're logged in, you have to use this 192.168 because that's the IP of that box you're working on, internal IP. Then the port number on which the Oracle database is running. Alright, so once you're given these details, you have to give it for all the schemas. So unselect that one, select the next thing. Same stuff for all. So encode 33, password, encode IT, the database name, encode IT, host name where it's running, port number where it's running. This is for user messaging services, the third thing that we have created, or ISDPM here. Encode 33, encode IT, password, service name here, encode IT, then the IP where it's running, port number. Then the next thing, OWSM MDS schema. The driver is thin driver for connections, then schema owner, encode 33, then the password is encode IT, DBMS service name, encode IT, host name, next one, so MDS schema, Oracle thin driver for instances, okay, schema owner name, encode 33, password, encode IT, encode IT, database name, that was host name, port number. Alright, so all your settings here have changed. Alright, now once that's done, move on to next, it will test everything. So everything has to be green here. If you have something not in green, make sure you go back, correct those settings, then try to move forward. Alright, all of them have to be green in color. They have to be successfully tested. Once they are done, move on to next. Now these are the various elements of the domain that are going to be created. We're going to create admin server, GMS, distributed destinations. Distributed destinations we're not going to use at this point because we don't have a cluster. A distributed destination of WebLogic requires a cluster, but we are going to have only a standalone server at this point. So there will be a warning message that will be shown to you that says you don't have a cluster, so a distributed destination. We have actually DQs and DTs, both of them. I'll show you, once the domain is created. But for now, the distributed destinations are actually standalone. Then we're going to create managed servers. Cluster we'll create later, but not now. We'll be creating managed servers. One for SOA, other one for BAM. The deployment related to SOA, we want all of them. File stores also we can optionally create. And the RDBMS security store is not something we are creating. Means we don't want our users passwords to go into the database. Instead, we want them to keep in our local embedded LDAP itself. So except the last one, you can pretty much select everything else. So I've selected everything else except the last one. I don't want my users, user setup to go into the database. Go on to next. Now configure the admin server. This is going to be the name of your admin server. Let's say I set up encode ADM or encode SOA ADM. Lesson address for the admin server 6. Listen port, I'm going to keep 7001 as it is. SSL port I'm not enabling at this point. or you can actually enable SSL and use a demo certificate. It's okay. This is where the warning will come to. Select a JMS distributed destination because we don't have a cluster, so a UDD is actually out of question. A uniform distributed destination requires a cluster, and we don't have a cluster, so you can leave these settings as they are. If you move forward, it's going to select, throw out a warning. You see a warning here. It says at least one JMS server resource has been selected for conversion into UDD. This conversion will take place only if the JMS system resource is assigned to a cluster. So basically it says you don't have a cluster, so the UDD will not actually work. So that's something that we already know. When we create a cluster, we can convert these standalone queues into UDDs later. We will see that process. For now, you can just override the warning, move on to the next screen. Now you're going to configure the managed servers. If you see the managed servers, there are two managed servers by default they come. One is for SOA, one is for BAM. All SOA related applications will be targeted to SOA server. All BAM related applications will be targeted to BAM server. Alright. Now I'm going to keep these server names as they are, just to keep it simple, not change too many things around here. So SOA server name is going to be SOA_server1, because in most of the documents that you're going to read, you'll see the server names as same. So I'm going to keep these server names same as they are. The local address, both of them are going to be running on this box. The port numbers also I'm going to keep the same. These are the default port numbers. Minimum 2 managed servers required for SOA and BAM. Yes, that's what a general configuration you will have in real time. One for SOA, one for BAM, and an admin server. So a domain will have at least 3. If you choose not to install BAM, then you can go ahead only with SOA server. Some environments may not want BAM, so in that case you can actually skip the BAM server creation. Only admin and SOA server, that way it can go. Alright. Right. So go ahead with the regular ports. Move on to next. Configure a cluster. We're not creating a cluster at this point. We will create it when we actually talk about clustering. Machines also is not required because we're not going to use a node manager here. So if you still want a machine, you can have a machine. Listen address, the listen port. Then you can actually assign this machine also to the admin server, also to the same machine, because all these servers are going to be running on the same box. Move on to next. Alright. Now this is the targeting deployments to our servers are clustered. Now if you see each of them, they're actually targeted to the corresponding servers. Now make sure you don't touch any of these things. This is the most critical or probably confusing aspect of the entire server domain creation. So these are all the libraries that get automatically installed. Some of the applications that there are about 70 to 80 applications. To be precise, there are 71. I think yesterday I've shown you a screenshot. 71 applications that actually gets deployed to a WebLogic domain. Those 71 applications together form the SOA. So each of them are targeted to certain servers. Let's say, for example, if you see a DMS application, it's targeted to all of the servers, admin, BAM, and server. The same way, if you see adapter, file adapter, which is targeted to only server. Same way, if you see Oracle BAM, this is targeted only to the BAM server. So you don't have to really change anything here. Go ahead with whatever the selections are. On to next. How it mapped? We don't map it. That's from the template. That's the reason we are using the key. If many servers are there, What do you mean many servers? Many source servers? Many managed servers? Two server, two BAM. Two servers cannot exist as standalone servers. You have to have them in a cluster. That's a problem with SOA. It will not work otherwise. You cannot have two standalone SOA servers in a domain. They have to be in a cluster. So you have to create a cluster. So this scenario is a non-functional scenario in this case. You can't have two SOA servers as standalone. So you will create a cluster, you assign those two servers to a cluster, and you target the application to the cluster. We'll come to that point, why two servers cannot exist as standalone servers when we talk about cluster. So for now, the point is you can't have two standalone servers in a domain. Two standalone servers, it's not possible. There will be issues with the MDS. That's the reason you cannot have it. So we'll come back to that one. So if you have two, means they are in a cluster and you target the applications to the cluster. That's how you do it. Otherwise, individual, one is source server, alright. One is BAM server. The applications are targeted correspondingly. On to next. This is the JMS stores or JMS file stores for our JMS things. These are the JMS file stores that automatically get created. This is where the messages that are used by the composites are stored. To move on to next with the default settings. Domain create WLST script. What is that, Riaz?
Domain is created and Python script, JSF script, SOA domain. It's not working.
No, that's going to get complicated. Using WLST, you can do that. If you once you get comfortable with the entire source stuff, you can actually use a template to do that. This is we are doing it from scratch. When you do it from scratch, keep it simple. Actually, this entire thing can be created using a simple template. If you know WLST template based creation, you don't have to really go through step-by-step process here. So that stage, you will come to that stage. I cannot directly go into an advanced state here, so that will confuse you a lot.
Okay.
Once you understood this one, you can actually pick up the WLST script, or I can show a template based domain creation. Once we know that, we can do that at a later stage. But for now, stick to the very basic way of doing it.
Okay.
So this is a summary. Alright, so the summary basically shows you what are applications, all that stuff, and create it. It takes little time at 70% for some reason. I don't know why, but I think that's where the actual file copy happens. Okay, so you're almost done. That's it. A domain is created now. The location is this one, as usual, under user underscore projects domains. This is the admin URL. So let's go to that location. So here we go. This is your domain creation done. Let's go to that location. So you're at all middleware home. This is your middleware home, Oracle middleware. Under middleware home, we have given user underscore projects. This is a new directory that was created. Domains directory and codes or domain. This is what we have created just now. This is the domain structure. This looks pretty much similar to any other WebLogic domain structure, except you got these file stores. Now all these directories are actually empty. You will see these file stores were created for SOA domain, and there is a slight difference in the config directory. You'll see, especially the FMW config directory is added here. So if you have a Fusion middleware, any product, you will see, OSB or SOA, you will see this FMW config directory. This is the additional directory that gets added. These are some of the XML files related to the SOA. So a couple of these XML files will be using as we proceed further, but this is one additional thing that we may not have seen in a regular pure WebLogic domain. Whereas if it is a SOA or OSB domain, this additional thing is what you will see. Apart from that, we already have JDBC as usual, JMS as usual. Node Manager is one additional thing that's available in 11G. Alright, so Node Manager, it has a properties file where you can store the username password actually. So the Node Manager password, this is encrypted, so it's not even stored anything here. So we'll come to those things later, but otherwise it's a regular WebLogic domain. Nothing really different here. If you go into config, you will find the regular config or .xml file, which is this one. Alright, the regular stuff. This is the name of the domain and other things. We have got a BAM server and admin server and the source server as usual. Same WebLogic stuff. Now what we're trying to do is to start the source. Then we get much better picture of everything. Now to start this server, we're going to use certain wrapper scripts. Or even before we go ahead with the wrapper script, let's just start in a very fundamental way. These are the startup scripts we'll be using. Start WebLogic for admin server. Alright, the regular under domain home bin directory start WebLogic for admin server. And for managed servers, we'll be using start managed WebLogic. The name of the server, in this case SOA underscore server 1. The same way for BAM server, we're going to use BAM underscore server 1. But for both of them, it's going to be start managed weblogic.sh. And the admin URL, as we know, okay, so the admin URL is this one. I think we are using the same thing here also. So let's start the servers. The admin server 1, BAM server 1, all three servers. Then we go into the wrapper scripts later, because these base scripts we cannot continue to use. So let's go ahead and start our servers just to make sure everything is good. So let's go to students SOA. Now this is all more sorry, we are under Oracle. This is more with WebLogic than SOA at this point. Means starting your domain is more with we are talking more of WebLogic, nothing related to specific SOA here. Oracle middleware So user underscore projects, domains, our domain. So inside this domain, I'm going to get into bin directory, domain home bin. This is under this domain home bin. The first command I'm going to use is start admin.sh, start weblog. We will create a start admin.sh wrapper script later, but for now we're going to use the base script. So for starting the admin server, this is the script I'm going to use. Alright, start weblog. I'm not using no hop, I'm not redirecting anything at this point. We will get to that wrapper script later. Let's first see that our servers are coming up, then we will see a no hop stuff. So I'm using it at a very base level. So give the username password, sya admin123. We want to make sure our servers are coming up, then we will create the no hop related wrapper scripts. Now your admin server will not have any problem coming up even without MDS, but SOA server and BAM server will not come up unless you have connectivity to the MDS. That's very important, because when you're bringing up the source server, it tries to actually connect to the database, pull a lot of information from the database. So to bring up the source server, it's mandatory you have a database or MDS accessible. I'm assuming all of you are familiar with this this ongoing WebLogic related stuff. I'm not going too deep into WebLogic related things unless it's necessary. So if any of you have any questions, you can even related to WebLogic, just make sure you ask those questions. Don't hesitate to ask even a WebLogic question also, but that's fine. It's just like any other WebLogic server. So once the admin is up, I'm going to log into the console. Yes, that's right. So server itself will not go down, but all the data sources will fail. Yeah, it will be useless.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, this is Riyas. SOA,
Yes.
SOA lifecycle methods or WebLogic lifecycle methods are same. What is different?
Yes. SOA is not a server. One thing we have to understand is SOA is not a server. SOA is an application.
Okay.
So there is no life
Yeah.
cycle of SOA as such.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are saying SOA server, we have a WebLogic server. On top of that, instead of ABCD application, we are running SOA application. That's it. So the life cycle is actually of WebLogic only. SOA is nothing but a group of Java applications. That's it. So these Java applications are hosted on WebLogic. So you always have WebLogic lifecycle only. There is no SOA lifecycle. To be very precise, SOA is a group of applications. That's it. We are working on WebLogic only. So these lifecycles, the states, they're all of WebLogic only. So you will see everything related to WebLogic, surely. You will get more much clearer idea once we log into the console and see the list of applications. What's the next question? After the restart, so BAM servers always in contact with the database? Yes, they are always in contact with the database. You don't have a database, you cannot actually run a SOA server. It's not possible. Alright, so our admin is up. It's available here. Now let me start the other two servers, SOA server and BAM server. I'm going to use these scripts, the base scripts again. Start manage weblogic.sh, manage server name, admin URL. One for server, one for back. So I'm going to open two screens because we are not using wrapper scripts. So let's go to the location. Students OLSYM, Oracle, middleware, user projects, domains, encodes or domain. Go to bin. I'm starting the manage server now. Start manage WebLogic. Manage server name SOA underscore server 1. Admin URL 192.168.128.6 7001. This is a base script, not a wrapper script. So we don't have any no hop any stuff at this point. So the base script, this is what the structure that I've used. This is for source server. We will create a wrapper script later. It again follows the same process. This is a WebLogic server. Server is just an application. It's very important that you realize the distinction. SOA admin 123. And while it is coming up, I can start the BAM server also. All the managed servers of a WebLogic domain you can start at a time. So source server and BAM server I'm going to start at a time. Encode IT. So let's go to the location. Can you guys put yourself on mute, please? City. Okay. While this comes up, I'll put it on the top. This one I'll put it at the bottom. The second managed server, which is BAM. So that you have top one is source server coming up, and we are planning on starting the BAM. Guys, can you guys put yourself on mute, guys? It's a lot of noise, I think, guys. Is it coming from me? You can see Raghav, can you put yourself on mute? Is that from your mic?
No, I'm actually on mute. I'm on my phone.
You're on mute? Okay. Something is wrong somewhere. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, now let's go to the domain home bin again, start the BAM server. City students, where? Why will we give the managed server names as SOA server? What is it? If SOA is application. You can give anything you want. It's for convenience. You can give your name Kalyan server. It still works. It's for convenience. We know that that's a source server because that's where all the server related applications are targeted. That's right. You can give your name, no issues. So let's start the BAM server also. Start manage WebLogic. BAM server 1. Admin URL. The same thing again. 192.168.128.6 7001. So remember, this port is of admin port. We all know that one. This is not managed server port. So that's going to be 7001 both for source server and BAM server also. So the top one is source server, the bottom one is BAM server. Both are coming up. If the database is not available during this time, your servers will not come up actually. Alright, they will stop at admin mode. So you give the username password, server admin 123. So the top one is source server, the bottom one is BAM server. Now, as usual, as I always say, always look at the log files while the servers are coming up, especially uh, SOA and BAM. These are very critical because there are a lot of applications deployed. It's really important that there are no errors while the servers came up. And you should get familiar with the regular warnings, errors kind of. See this one. This is kind of a very regular warning you will see. This is common. So you should know it's a very common thing. So unless you keep looking at the logs every time the server starts, you won't know that this is a common error. So it's important that you get familiar with the regular log details. Just keep looking at the log. That's enough. You don't have to really remember anything. It happens automatically after a couple of days. Read through every message that's coming up. It's really important. It helps in troubleshooting a lot of problems. So concentrate on the source server for now. BAM server we can do later. For now, concentrate more on source server. So I'm going to expand this one further. Alright, this is the source server log. More applications are towards source server. You can see it in the console. So it's not big deal. You'll see it in the console. Let's just start the servers, then we'll get into console. We can actually count the number of apps. Depends on server start time. Why? So applications are targeted to source server. BAM applications are targeted to, yeah, that's right. Source servers take a lot of time to start. Source servers, BAM, so especially source server, it takes a lot of time to start. A very long time. That's one problem in all our SOA classes. You'll be waiting for a longer time, especially even now it's okay. The later stages when we work on UMS, BAM, the UMS thing is a messy thing because it requires a lot of restarts, and every restart usually takes 10 minutes. So even when you're working on the cloud server, you have to be really patient. So if 2 or 3 guys are working at a time, the cloud server will be slow because a lot of servers will be running. It will be slow. So our entire thing will be slow because a lot of applications have to be deployed. About 70 applications have to be deployed to servers. See, it takes very long time for the servers to come up. That's just the worst part of SOA. Now, while this is happening, make sure you have that Xming thing working on your system. Yeah, OEM also gets deployed here itself. OEM is targeted to the admin server. So while the admin came up, so that was up.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello, this is Riaz.
yes.
Yeah, actually, I installed yesterday SOA.
hmm
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
I installed SOA. First of all, I installed JDK and database. After that, first of all, installed DB and JDK and WebLogic server is successful.
Okay.
But SOA is. Yeah? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Riaz. Go ahead.
Yeah, three application is successful and SOA is installed, but is some checking for stress 6.1 is not found failed.
What is it? Checking for?
Stress for 1.6-1 is not found failed.
That we have seen, right? That error we have seen. We have
Yeah,
discussed in the class. We just skip that. If that's the only failure, skip it. You're working on the cloud server?
yeah,
Did you work on the cloud server?
cloud server.
Yeah, then
Yes,
you
yes,
can skip that. We have seen the same problem when we installed it. So just look at that video that we have. We have added an additional
yes.
parameter, skip system prerequisites. If that's the only
Mm-hmm.
failure that you've seen, you can skip it and move forward.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
given
okay.
hyphen ignores his checks something.
Yeah, that's right. So skip that one and move forward, Riaz. You can skip that specific thing.
Okay.
That's non-impacting this one.
So that is a package issue, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the RPM issue.
Yeah,
Is that
it's a
RPM issue?
RPM issue. It's not RPM issue. It's actually the installer issue. The RPM is there on the system. A higher version of RPM is there. But the
Oh, okay.
higher version of RPM is not detected by the SOV installer. SOV installer tries to look at 161 only, and it cannot find it. And if you try to install 161 on the system, your system will complain a higher version is already installed.
Okay.
See, OS, if you try to install 161 above 161, OS will say you don't have to install 161 because there is 171 is already available on this system. But 171 cannot
Yeah.
be detected by the SOV installer.
Maybe you delete this and install that
No, that
minor. I mean, this is the case.
yeah, that's a possible solution, but that will conflict with glib versions.
Yeah. Other dependence
Yeah,
libraries
other
maybe.
dependencies conflict. So the set arc is it's a known problem. It's on the forums everywhere. So you can set arc 161 error you can actually ignore. So here, okay, now our source server is up. If you see this one, these are the two warnings you will see at the end of everything. So this is kind of why these warnings nobody really knows. There are discussions about these warnings across the forums, but nobody seemed to have answer to that. So our server is up. It's running on 8001. I think even the BAM server is up, running on 9001. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the console of our domain and also the enterprise manager of our domain. So I'm going to show you those two things. So let's get into console first. I'm going to use Opera. My Chrome is pretty overloaded. A lot of plugins on that. That's slowing down the system. So let's access the console. Console. This is our IP268. Otherwise, you can actually use cloud server because we've been using cloud. So for example, depending on the customer, you don't use port number 7100. That's really important. Means only 7001 to 9000 other ports will not be accessible outside. Alright, this is your admin console for 11G WebLogic admin console. Login SOA admin 123.
Hello, local address is 192.168 is there. You have mentioned 49.204.889.
What is it, Riyaz?
Here, local address is 129.168 is there. You have mentioned 49.204.89.88.
Yeah, this is how you would this one do it, right? You are accessing it from outside.
Yeah.
Think of it like, like you are accessing it. If you have to access console, you can't use 192 because 192 is internal. Once you are in the network, you will use 192. And basically this 49.204 is not a IP of a box. It's an IP of a router. This is supposed to forward it to that internal box. Now I'm using it so that you won't have problem when you're practicing, because if you have to access console on a cloud server, you can't use 192, but your servers will be actually running on 192 only. So at a Unix level or at WebLogic level, when you are working, you will use 192.168, but for accessing the server or accessing any GUI based stuff, you'll be using the cloud server IP port. The port will remain same of your admin server. The IP will be of the cloud server.
Okay.
Alright, so this is the domain that we have created just now. Alright, so this is the name of the domain, encode server domain. If you look at the environment, look at the servers. We have 3 servers, 1 admin and 2 managed servers. So this is admin server, SOA server for SOA, BAM server for BAM. Now if you go into clusters, there are no clusters, virtual host nothing, migratable targets nothing. You will see migratable targets when you have a cluster. There's nothing, we will be creating them later. Alright. Machines, we have created one M1. Work automatically, some of the work managers, so work manager comes automatically get created. Then there are certain startup classes you will see. These are the startup shutdown classes of SOA. They are automatically created. Now look at the deployments. This is what we've been worried about. There are 70 deployments, and these 70 deployments together form the SOA application. So these are about 10. So let me customize it. Customize this. Number of rows displayed per page, I'm going to change it to 100 or something. We have only 70 applications, so 100 should be enough. Apply. Now you got all 1 to 70 of 70 on a single page. These are your SOA application. These are the Java applications related to SOA. You will see a warning here for a BAM. This is a known error. You can pretty much ignore it. The rest of the applications, some of the applications are active, others are installed. So these are all together, they form the WebLogic SOA suite. These are nothing but Java applications deployed on WebLogic. Alright. Then let's go ahead and see other related settings. If you especially to JDBC, let's first go into data sources. These are the data sources. You remember these are the data sources we have given when we created when we are creating the domain. They were actually taken or created out of the information that we have given. So each of them will be used by a different purpose, and they are targeted to different server. If you see BAM data source, it's targeted only to the BAM server. The same way if you see SOA data source, it's targeted only to the SOA server, like that. Right? So apart from that, let's get into persistent stores. We got these persistent stores, and the directories for these persistent stores are in the home directory itself, if you remember that one. So let's open up another session here. Let's go to the domain home. Oracle middleware user underscore projects domains encodes our domain. You see these directories? These are the directories of the persistent stores. You won't see anything inside these things because we don't have any messages in any of them. Some of them have a dat file. Yeah. Sometimes you won't see anything at all. So let's get into another thing. This also has it. Alright, so where is our SOA? This thing here. This is SOA. Yeah. Each of them has a dat file. Sometimes you may not find a dat file. Just make sure that that's not a problem. It gets created when you have the messages put into that. Alright, apart from that, if you go into messaging, you have GMS servers. First things, you see there is one targeted to SOA, one targeted to BAM. Then there are a couple of GMS servers for UMS, user messaging services. GMS modules. These are the GMS modules. If you go into any of these modules, let's say for example SOA GMS module, you will see queues and topics. You see connection factories, queues and topics. These are various destinations. The same way, if you go into another module, let's say BAM GMS system resource, these are BAM related queues and topics. It has all the topics. So these things get created when we are actually creating the template. The security realm pretty much looks the same. It has nothing different, especially the providers. Alright, they don't really change. Only changes you will see is in terms of deployments, in terms of JDBC GMS related stuff, startup shutdown classes. There is a work manager created here, and then servers. That's all. That's a basic resources of your SOA domain. Now, if you go into the enterprise manager, which is the next thing that we have created, deployed 49.204.89.88 / port number 7001 /em enterprise manager. Now, if you have to somebody asked me what's the difference between console and EM. Console is a WebLogic administration tool. You can administer WebLogic related stuff. Enterprise Manager is SOA administration tool. Means you can administer SOA related stuff. Means you can deploy composites. You can look at the statistics of SOA related information. So as we keep using Enterprise Manager, you will have a clear understanding of the difference. But to give you a very simplistic difference, console is for WL administration, EM is for SOA administration. This is your Enterprise Manager screen. Alright, it's called Fusion Middleware Control. That's what it's called. The password and username going to remain same. SOA admin 123. Yeah. Any questions?
By default, this
No, this does not get installed by default. We have to select it during the installation. If you remember the first screen of config.sh, you see this, where are the screenshots we have? You see this thing? You have to select this one, Oracle Enterprise Manager. If you don't select this, you won't have Enterprise Manager. This is one mistake we make a lot of times when creating them. So you have to select this option here. You see it?
It will be defaulted to admin server while deploying, or?
Yeah, it gets to admin server. That's right. It gets targeted to
Okay.
admin by default. And you have to select it, otherwise it won't get installed. Alright, so this is accessibility. This is first time you will say. The screen reader is, I think, more like a swipe option kind of thing. Smartphone, or you have a you can swipe the screen and then like ATM. I'm not sure if that works or not, but there's an option here that Enterprise Manager can be accessed on a screen reader also. That's this option. This is a login entry into Enterprise Manager. Okay, this is what it looks like, your Enterprise Manager. On the left side, you have deployments and the status of the deployments, this green bar. And on the right side, servers, the status of the servers, and MDS. In the MDS, you will be shown two MDS. Basically, one is for SOA, other one is Oracle Web Services Manager, the security related MDS. And then user messaging services, we'll come to know about user messaging services later. Then this is more like a help page, links to your online documentation. We don't really use our front end, except that we want this to status in green. What we are more interested in is the SOA thing and the BAM thing. If you have your SOA server down, you won't see this SOA entry. If you have your BAM server down, you won't see your BAM entry here. Apart from that, you have your WebLogic domain that can be accessed from here. Alright, this is your encode SOA domain. These are the three servers. You will actually configure some of the things from here also. Then you got UMS configuration, which we're going to do from here. User messaging services, we will see what is user messaging services, why they are used, and then how to configure them later. Alright, so that's our domain. We don't want domain, we want SOA. So let's get into SOA. You're looking at SOA infrastructure. SOA infrastructure is nothing but the entire group of applications deployed to SOA server 1. If we have SOA server 2, which is also in cluster with SOA server 1, that will also form a SOA infra. So each SOA server forms a SOA infra, means it's called a SOA infrastructure. Inside the SOA infra, what do we have is a default, it's called a partition. Partition, we will talk about a partition during deployment. Partition is a logical grouping of certain applications. So we will see why a partition is used and what are the uses. So that's what you got here. Apart from that, there are certain default applications that are deployed, application deployments. There are certain internal applications, then resource adapters are there which will let you connect. Then these are some of the applications that are default installed. Now if you look at the resource adapters, these are the resource adapters that are installed by default. These are the adapters that let you connect to a GMS, let you connect to a MQ series, IBM MQ. You can use to read and write at, that's a file adapter. FTP adapter can be used to transfer the files from within by using a SOA composite. So some of these adapters we will be using. These adapters come by default. And as I told you guys, there are about 300 adapters. You have to buy some of the adapters, but these are some things that are available free of cost. These are very basic adapters. So once that is done, there are certain internal applications. If you look at this, these are the internal applications. One of them is Enterprise Manager. DMS, you will see this is monitoring. It's called Dynamic Monitoring Servlet. It's an internal monitoring mechanism used by entire SOA infrastructure. You can actually use this servlet to monitor if you want. Dynamic monitoring servlet. We will talk a little bit about that. Apart from that, you have web services manager, process manager, that will be actually taking care of the security related stuff. Some of this internal. We not directly we won't be using anything from this drop down here. We are always interested in the SOA part. This is where most of your work will be moving around. Then BAM. BAM has two parts to it. One is the BAM server, other one is BAM web. We will talk about the difference later. What is BAM server, what is BAM web, why they are used, what are the purposes of each of them. Then metadata repositories, it will show you two by default. Alright, so you can register a metadata, you can unregister a metadata repository, all that stuff can be done. Then UMS has it's basically a mechanism to send out the notifications from the composite. So you have a SOA applications deployed in XML, and the XML composite wants to send out a notification, then it will use the UMS services. So those are various elements of your SOA suite. Now if you basically don't have either SOA server up or BAM server up, the corresponding this thing will go off. So if you see, for example, let's say I kill the BAM server, then the BAM will actually go. So this is my BAM server. Alright, so this one 9001 it's running on. This is the BAM server. I'm going to use a Control-C here just to kill it, because this is not a wrapper script, so Control-C will actually kill it. So that's down. Once it goes down, the BAM related stuff will go from here. So just refresh this page. You have a refresh button at the top right side corner. So here you see this refresh button. If you refresh it, this is the refresh button. The BAM related elements will be gone from this location. See, this BAM will be gone from next time. Alright, so I think BAM stuff is gone. This you will still see here, server is on here. Down, your BAM server is down, which is this one. BAM related applications are down. This is still, you're seeing it here. Let's do a refresh again, it will go. I think it's still refreshing. Yeah, it's gone. So BAM is gone. The same way, if you kill the SOA server, a SOA will be gone. So let's kill the SOA server. And is it this one? This is our SOA server. Alright, running on port number 8001. Let's kill it. I'm using a Control-C to kill it now. You will be using usually kill-9 once you have a wrapper script. We're going to have it later. So again, once that's killed, just refresh it. Yeah, your source server is also down. You see this one here? Source server is down. Alright. So these are the total applications availability. The green thing you're seeing is the admin server related applications. Here also, the admin is up, the only server. This SOA button also should go out. Yeah, ideally, yeah, it's gone. Means you can have your enterprise manager. You can log into enterprise manager even without starting SOA and BAM servers. It won't, show anything. That's it. Other than that, there is nothing to do here in the enterprise manager if you don't have SOA server and BAM server, because enterprise manager is basically for managing the SOA domain, not the SOA server. It's the SOA related stuff. Now that I have shut down the servers, I'm going to create the wrapper scripts. Now you've seen the problem with the type of scripts we have used. The problem is the moment I close the session, the server goes down. So the moment you do, you have to keep the sessions open. So for those who already learned WebLogic with me, you already know the wrapper script stuff. But for those who are directly to SOA, this is what we are doing for the wrapper script. These are the shutdown scripts. For stop manage WebLogic manage server name admin URL, stop manage WebLogic again manage server name admin URL, and I think this is stop weblogic.sh. It's supposed to be stop. Sorry. Now the wrapper script part. Again, these are the URLs for console and enterprise manager. Just now we logged into them. The wrapper scripts. This is what you're going to use in real time, because you cannot keep your putty sessions open. What we're going to do is we're going to follow a small trick on Unix that will allow us to send this process which we have been running in the foreground here. Alright, we will be trying to send it to the background, and that's what we are trying to do by using a wrapper script. Now the way you send something to the background is by setting up an ampersand at the end. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to capture the log in a separate file. We don't need any inputs anyway, because we're going to create a boot.properties, and we will send the process to the background. This is what we're going to do. See this one. This should give you a nice view of what we are trying to do here. This is our WebLogic server, be it a source server or admin server or anything. Now normally operating system gives it 3 files: standard input, standard output, and standard error. 0, 1, 2, that's what they are called. By default, all of them are targeted to the same terminal, like TTY here. So if you are executing a start weblogic.sh, it was given 3 files by the OS. One is called 0, or it's called standard input. Standard input means any input that we need to give to this process has to come from that 0 file. Now that 0 file, basically what we are doing is we are targeting it to the black screen you are seeing. That's why the input to this script, the username password, we are giving it through this black screen. It's called terminal. So actually what is happening is when you give it to terminal, the terminal will put it into the standard input. A process will be able to read from standard input. The same way, any output coming out of this process has to go to standard output. But again, the standard output is also targeted to the terminal. So here, the black screen in this case, this is the terminal. TTY is the terminal. This is where it's targeted. So any output coming out of this process will be shown on the terminal. It is supposed to be shown on standard output, but standard output is redirected to TTY. The same way, any error coming out of that process, let's say the process cannot continue, the process is terminating, those are errors. They will be, again, they're supposed to be shown on 2, but they will be shown on the terminal because, again, this targeted. Now, instead of a WebLogic process, I'm going to show you a very simple, a cat command kind of thing. Let's say I create a temporary directory called Unix. All right, go into Unix directory. Let's create a small file, f1. Let's say this is file f1. So I have a file f1. If I do a cat f1, it's output. Alright, so this is standard output. Now if I do a cat f100, it's an error. This is standard error. But you still got it to the same screen. But actually what happened is there are two different things happened here. When you did a cat f1, the output was sent to standard output, which is 1. When you did a cat f100, this is not output, this is error. But still you are able to see it on the screen because the standard error is also targeted to the same TTY. But internally these are two different things that happen. One is output, other one is an error. You don't have f100 file. Now I'm going to execute both the commands at a time. Cat f1 f100. f1 is output, f100 is an error. So if you see f1, this is output, this is file f1. Whereas for f100, cat command is saying there is no such file at directory. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to redirect error to a different file. Let's say error.log file. Normally instead of targeting to TTY, I am targeting to something that I want, like this. I'll come to this screen later. So what I'm doing is I'm targeting the standard error to, instead of TTY, I'm targeting to my own log file. Now the output, you will see only this. You won't see this. The reason is standard error is not directed to TTY anymore in this command. It's targeted to error.log. So this line will go into this file. So let's execute it. I see. Only standard output. Where is your error gone? Into the error.log here. Now I can do the same thing for standard output also, means 1. Means I am not sending anything to the screen. 1 also I am sending it to my own log file. 2 also I am sending it to my own log file. So I am not sending anything to TTY anymore. So nothing is displayed. All my output gone to out.log. All my error gone to error.log. But if you observe, the error.log already had an entry, but that original entry was overwritten because you have single redirected. If you want to append to an existing file, you're going to use the standard Unix again. f100 1 double redirect means append to the existing log, append to the existing log. Now you are capturing, but instead of overwriting, you are appending to existing log. So that's the reason you have 2 here. 1 previously, 1 now. The same way error.log also will have. So if you do the same command again, you should have 3 entries. If you see cat out dot 3 entries, the same way error.log. So what the point here is, your output and error can be redirected to anywhere you want. Now why we want to redirect anywhere is, we are trying to put our WebLogic server to the background. Now when you put it to the background, a server or the process does not know, or it actually does not have any terminal where it can put the log file to. Or in other words, we will be losing the log coming out of this process. We don't want to lose it. You want to capture it. So you have basically captured the standard output by redirecting 1. You have captured the error by redirecting the error. Alright, so you captured standard output and standard error. Now the only thing that is remaining is the standard input. When you send a process to the background, you cannot give standard input. Alright, so that's why we have WebLogic taken care of that one. It has what is called boot.properties file. You create a boot.properties file and the WebLogic will be able to read that file. Now there is a slight modification here we are going to do. On the next screen, if you see, earlier in the last example I said, where is that example? Here. You are redirecting 1 to a different log file, 2 to a different log file. Now some cases like WebLogic startup, sorry about that guys, my kid is shouting. So here, instead of redirecting it to separate log files, we can actually try to put it to the same log file like this. F1, F100, 1 redirected to out.log, 2 also redirect to out.log. No issues, because that's what we want for a WebLogic kind of program, because we don't want the output to go to a separate log file, error to go to a separate log file. We want everything related to WebLogic in a single log file. That way it will be easy for us. So now if you say everything is in a single log file. Now this notation can be put into a different way. Now instead of saying every time that it should go to out.log, look at this diagram that we have. What we are saying is the output 1 should redirect to the output.log, 2 should go to wherever 1 is going. It's a slight modification in the way we are saying it. Here, what we are saying here, I'm giving the out.log 2 times. Instead of giving it 2 times, I can say F1, F100, send 1 to out.log, 2 send it to address of 1. Address of 1 is basically out.log. Means I'm sending 2 to wherever 1 is going. This is a popular notation that gets used everywhere. And this is exactly same as this. It's a different way of saying the same thing. I can say send standard output.log standard error to the log file, or I'm saying send output to this log, send error to wherever 1 is going. It's a simple way of doing. And the way you denote is this thing. Output should go to admin.log, error should go to wherever 1 is going, address of 1. Now this is the command that will capture your output, that will capture your error. Now we can send this thing to the background. But before we send it to the background, alright, we want to make sure the server does not require any inputs. And our server, WebLogic server especially, requires only one input to start, username, password. That we're going to put it into a file called boot.properties file. And what's the location of this file? Something is going wrong here. What's the location of boot.properties file? Where is it supposed to be, guys?
The security folder.
In security, that's enough, or we have to have it under every security?
And every manager.
Yeah, so for every server in the WebLogic domain, under that directory you have to create security folder and you have to put the boot.properties file. Now this used to be much easier in 10G because you can put it in the domain home and WebLogic you would create that folder for you, but in 11G onwards you can't put it in domain home. You have to create these directories and then create the boot.properties file and put it into those directories. So we're going to quickly do that. It's already a little late, but we're going to quickly do that. And these are the wrapper scripts we're going to create. See this one: domain home bin start weblogic.sh, one redirect to out.log, two redirect to wherever one is going. That. So we're going to create a wrapper script for admin, manage server 1, manage server 2. So we're going to create stop and start wrapper scripts, both of them. I'm going to do a little quickly. So admin is already running, so I'm going to do a kill here, Control C. So admin is also down now. Now my wrapper scripts, I'm going to put it under domain home itself, not under bin. So let me create a vi start admin.sh. I'm going to create a wrapper script with this one. This is going to be my wrapper script. Under bin directory, start weblogic.sh. This is for admin server. I am redirecting the log of admin to admin.log, error to wherever one is going. Now I'm running everything in the background. This will send it to the background so that I can close the terminal. But when I run it in the background, I want to make sure it does not listen for any interrupts. And the way I say it is by saying no hub, means do not hang up if you see Control C's and all that stuff. Now normally if you don't give this part and if you give no hub, it gets it creates a no hub dot out log. So that's one way of doing it. A lot of people do that. Means you can give no hub with this file name and directly ampersand it. So you're not using a separate log file. Here, this is a much better way of doing it. You are capturing it in an exclusive log file. Now this log file name can be customized in a lot of ways. So you don't send it to nohub.out always. Send it to some other thing, which is much more descriptive in name. Now this is the actual command that we are planning on using, but I'm going to modify it a little bit further to make this script much more better. So I'm going to use a variable domain home, which is our domain home. What's our domain home? Let's copy paste the domain home. So our domain home is students OLSOA Oracle middleware user underscore projects domains encode so domain. This is our domain home. So I'm going to copy paste this entire thing onto that screen here. Alright, so that's my domain home. Now in nohub, I'm saying under domain home bin there is a start WebLogic executed. Alright, this is much more generic now. So my script, my output will go into admin.log file. There won't be any nohub.out because we are capturing the standard output, which is 1 into admin.log, and everything will be done in the background. Alright, so I'm going to save it, close it. So my start admin is available. Now the same thing, I'm going to copy it to manage server and modify it, start admin.sh. So let's say start server1.sh. The same way. Now okay, let's open up this server1, modify it. The domain home will remain the same. For manage server, we're going to have start manage weblogic.sh. These are the base scripts we have already used. And the syntax for manage server startup is start manage weblogic, manage server name, which is server1 in our case, admin URL. I'm not doing anything that is that you don't know. The base scripts I've taken, I'm using little Unix to run them in the background. Admin URL. Once that is done, one redirect to, not to admin this time, we want to send it to SYA underscore server1 log file because this is server1. 2 will redirect to address of 1 as usual, standard error. We are going to run everything in the background. Alright, same stuff. So only thing we have added this no hub stuff here. Alright, other than that, the start manage weblogic.sh, manage server name, admin URL, those are all same. Save it, close it. Now copy this start SYA to start BAM server. So we're going to create a BAM server also. BAM server 1.sh. So open up that BAM server. So here everything remains same except instead of source server it's going to be BAM underscore server 1. Admin IP port will remain same. Instead of source server we're going to give BAM underscore server. That's a log file name. That's it. So your start scripts are ready. Now the same way you can create the stop scripts. Let's say you copy start admin to stop admin.sh, copy start source server to stop server 1.sh, copy start BAM server to stop BAM server.sh. Then modify the stop scripts. Let's open up this one, vi stop. This is something that you have to do once. Stop weblogic.sh. We want the log file to go to the same log file here, right? So save it, close it. The rest of the things will remain same. The same way, modify it for server. Everything remains same except instead of start, it's going to be stop. I'm going a little fast because we are already late. So if you don't understand anything, just let me know. Or if you are confused anywhere, let me know. So same way, BAM server I'm changing. The only script that changes is instead of start script, it's going to be stop script. That's it. This is all WebLogic. There is nothing related to SY here, but if you have any questions, let me know. So we have all our scripts ready. So give the permissions 755 to all SH scripts here. Now you have your start scripts ready. So ls start. So you got start admin, this one, start source server, start BAM server. The same way, ls-l stop. So you got stop admin, stop server, stop BAM. Now you can start the servers. So before you start, let's create the boot.properties file and copy it. It's going to be under servers location. Alright, cd there. Inside these three directories you have to create the security. So if you go into admin, you won't find the security folder. At this point there is no security folder. Alright, so we're going to create the security folder here. So I'm going to use mkdir-path, this thing, security, mkdir-path, this thing, security. Otherwise you can go into each of those directories. If you don't want to give a -p, you can go into each of those directories and create the security folder. Alright, now I have the security folder available everywhere. I'm going to create the boot.properties file and copy it to all the locations. Boot.properties, only two values here, username equal to server admin, password equal to server admin123. Alright, save it, close it. Now you have boot.properties. You're not supposed to have it here, you're supposed to have it under these folders. So I'm going to copy it, copy boot.properties into admin security folder, copy boot.properties into server security folder, copy boot.properties into BAM server security folder. So we're done. You can remove this boot.properties from this location. Alright, we're cleaned again. So now let's go back, start the servers, start admin.sh. Now this time, how do you pass them to admin command? You don't have to pass. How do you pass boot.properties? We don't have to pass it. That's how the script is designed. If the boot.properties file is there, it won't ask for the password. It's supposed to read the boot.properties file from the security folder. If it cannot find the boot.properties, then only it will ask us. That's how the start WebLogic script is designed. You don't have to explicitly pass the username password. You have boot.properties, it will be read. That's the design of start WebLogic. It will try to find the file first. If it cannot find, then only it's going to ask you. So this is the boot.properties file where it read. So you just have to create the boot.properties file and put it over there. You don't have to pass anything. Any questions in the wrapper scripts, guys? Especially for those who are, who are not my WebLogic students. Basically, all those who are, WebLogic, they know these things. If you did not understand, please let me know. Alright, so our admin is up. Now we don't have any issues with doing a Control-C or anything. Our servers will be running in the background. Alright, ps-ef grep for Java. This is your admin server. And code is for admin. Now the same way, I can start the server with the wrapper script server. The same way I can start the BAM server at a time. So the two log files will be created, one for server. This is what we have given in the wrapper script, one for BAM. You can take a look at each of them. Alright, they are coming up. Alright, so while they come up, you can actually exit everything. Still they will be coming up. They are in the wrapper script. So if you close everything basically to your cloud server, this is what we wanted. We don't want the sessions, a server startup, to be dependent on the sessions. So we clean up, the servers should be still coming up. If you connect again, alright, to the cloud server 49, 204, 89, 88, 59, 233. Code IT. Get a wrong password. And code IT. Right, if you go to the domain home, students, OLSware, Oracle middleware, user projects, domains, encode daemon. Look at one of the log files, tail-f SYS server 1 should be coming up. It's still coming up. Alright, that's your domain creation, server startup shutdown, and wrapper scripts. And we'll be using these wrapper scripts for the rest of our sessions. And these wrapper scripts are a little advanced wrapper scripts. There are much advanced wrapper scripts than this, especially when you customize the name. Instead of saying admin.log, you can actually put a date stamp into the admin.log so that every time you start the server, a new log gets created. Or you can actually implement log rotate script that will rotate the log file. Well, that all things can be done in real time. Any questions? Now we're going to stop it here for today. That's our domain creation startup of servers, and then we logged into the console and enterprise manager. We moved around what are the various applications related to SOA. The next thing is we're going to deploy a composite. So during deployment, we'll see how to deploy, what are the various terminology that we come across. We'll talk about components, we'll talk about instances, dehydration, store, all that stuff. But that we're going to see tomorrow. Alright, if you have any questions, shoot, otherwise you can drop off. Thanks very much. $70 apps are by default apps are then on top customized apps. 70 apps are by default. Comes then on top customized. Yes, you can put customized apps on top of it. Default apps are basically the engines. All the 70 apps that we talked about, they are the Beeple engine, mediator engine, human workflow engine, rules engine. Those are the engines. Those are the 70 application, but we don't have an application yet, so which is actually supposed to do the work of the end user. So the application will be on top of it. The main function of OSB is for virtualization. It basically it does everything a mediator does. OSB does everything a mediator does. All the vitro properties means validate, enrich, transform, route, and operate. Along with those functions, the one additional thing OSB does is it virtualizes the service. Means let's say there are 5 services and a loan application. The best example for OSB is a loan application. Let's say you are applying for a loan. Now when you apply for a loan, you go to a website and you basically apply for a loan. You say that the amount you want. You may want a lakh or you may want a crore. Now bank internally has 2 different processes for these 2 kinds of customers. If you are asking for 1 lakh, you are a normal customer, so bank has no problem giving you a loan. They will do a basic check. They'll do a CIBIL rating check, and then if you are good with your credit cards, your rating is good, they will approve it. There's not too much checking going on. But if you are asking for 1 crore, now does the bank want to give you loan or they don't want to give you loan? Tell me this thing first. You're asking for 1 crore. Riaz. You're asking for 1 crore. Now, you have applied, you went to the website and you have applied, you want 1 crore. Now, the bank, do they want to give you loan or they don't want to give you loan?
Banks don't want the loan.
They don't want to give you loan because you are asking 1 crore?
Why? Because there some restrictions is there.
What kind of restrictions?
Is there is business purpose or any personal? Is there some personal loans? Is there in business loans? Is there business? Is there?
So they have to check everything. So they have to validate everything, isn't it? So the validation process for a regular loan is different. The validation process for a large business loan is different, isn't it? But let's say the form is common.
Okay.
So the front end form, everybody can go there, basically fill in the same form. But on the back end, the process changes. A process for a regular 1 lakh loan is, let's say, you just check the background, CIBIL score, financial background check, as Mukund is saying, and if everything is good, approve it and give it. That can be automated. But if you say the process of a bank says, if somebody is asking for 1 crore, it has to be manually approved by a manager after verification. Let's say that's the process because the loan is big.
Yes.
Now, if the manual approval is involved, you have to use a different process. So 1 lakh loan processing is different, 1 crore loan processing is different. But the front end application is same in this case. So depending on what amount of loan you are asking, the application has to follow step 1 or process 1 or process 2. Now the redirection will be done by the OSB. So the front end application has only one application. It simply asks you your name, email address, mobile number, what's the amount of loan you want. That's it. Simple form, one form.
Yes.
Depending on the amount you are asking, the OSB either will choose process 1 or process 2. So what OSB doing here is, it is basically virtualizing process 1, process means process 1 and process 2 are not exposed to the outside world. You are simply applying for a loan. You don't know that there are 2 different processes if the loan amount is different. So OSB here is the one that initially takes your request. It checks the amount of loan you are asking. It routes the request to either process 1 or process 2 depending on your amount. So what OSB is doing is, it is not allowing the end user to see the internal process. whether it's manual or whether it's automated or whether it's something else. That way you can actually simplify the front end by using OSB and by virtualizing the backend services. That's what OSB is used for in real time.
Anil, same thing can be achieved using mediator as well, right?
Normally mediator is used within a composite. Let's say a composite has multiple services it's calling, then within a composite you use a mediator. OSB is outside a composite. Mediator cannot virtualize. It can route, but it cannot virtualize. So mediator is usually used inside a composite. OSB is outside SOA. Alright. Any other questions, guys? Otherwise, I'll drop off. I'll see you tomorrow same time. Alright, guys, thanks very much. I'm just running for something else. Alright, see you tomorrow. Thanks.